Welcome to On the Table, a podcast about board games, card games, and tabletop war games. Welcome back to episode 110 of the On the Table Gaming podcast. I'm Chase from On the Table Gaming, and I'm here with Simon to discuss the 20th anniversary CMON Expo. And Simon, I think we might have to bring in some help for this. This is a pretty big occasion here.
I think so. We need a heavy hitter. Who can we bring in?
I don't know. Let's see who's around here. We could reach out to Fabio. Ours is the Fury Cury to jump in here. Let's give him a ring.
Let's do
it. Hey, Fabio.
Hey, Chase. What's up?
Hey, got a second to talk about the CMON 20th Anniversary Expo?
I guess, right? I guess we just talked about that on the expo, so you should definitely take a look.
Yes, we'll link that in the show notes.
Let's deep dive.
All right, let's jump in on this. So thank you so much for jumping on here, Fabio, to go through what you kind of just showed on stream here. And before we jump into all that goodness, what's it like doing these streams? Like, do you get nervous? Are you excited? Do you have to rope off your whole day?
Well, I'd say in the beginning, I used to get way more nervous. Nowadays, I go through the motions, but when you lose your trail of thought during the moment, like in the live stream or something like that, you do get worried. And it's like, oh man, how am I going to pull myself back up and go back to topic? But I think that's just normal. And that's how people talk regularly, right? So why wouldn't it be like that on a live stream? But it's really fun. It's interesting. And it's hard not to get lost reading the comments during the recording.
Yeah, I think the comments are throwing me off. Some of those, when they pop up, make me laugh or, make me think about them a little bit. So I'm sure they're pretty distracting at times.
I feel like there was a healthy discussion of facial hair before things got started. Is that going to become the new panel norm here?
Well, when isn't facial hair fun?
There we go. That's very true. I agree. There were some comments made about a mustache. I think you gotta, let's see, every time, Fab, we got to switch it up. Michael's got the big mustache. You got the beard coming in here. You're kind of looking like one of those Targaryen freedmen right now. You got the sides going along here.
I don't know. I'll see. I was thinking sideburns, but if people want the stash, we'll try. It's hard. My mustache doesn't really grow as voluptuous as Michael's or yours. So it's difficult.
That can be your year end of year goal here. We'll go for an end of year stream. We can show off the mustache or something.
Buy one of those hair growing oils or balms or stuff.
That's where things went wrong. But anyhow, sorry. We digress here. So let's jump into what we talked about on the CMON Expo. So one of the first things you guys hit on was talking about the cards and that those are coming soon. You guys are dealing with a lot of those challenges, just distribution stuff that's out of your control, but they're hopefully just around the corner.
Yeah. On that, I'd say that not only these things are out of our control, but in the end, we've noticed that they're impacting the decisions that we have to make moving forward, right? And a lot of what we said in that stream was exactly that, how we need to see how we can do changes regardless of distribution and see what is the best solution for the game and for the state of the game in regards to how frequently changes should be done. And that's something that we've always taken into consideration and we always reevaluate. And I guess that this whole global pandemic and this whole distribution issue in function of this pandemic really made us have to rethink. And now we have a lot of cool plans coming forward.
Actually, and I wanted to ask this on the stream, but has the shift to these quarterly releases, has that impacted anything on your end? We've had a slew of unit boxes come out this year already. And instead of having kind of trickle out a couple a month, having these bigger dumps every quarter, does that change the way you maybe, the way you think about balance? Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder? Or is there actually kind of maybe no real impact?
I'd say there's no real impact is a big sentence.
Right.
There's a lot of weight carrying, but I'd say that there is just a small impact because in the development cycle, we're already really years ahead and we're pushing things forward. So that's really mostly a production and pipeline deal, right? So I kind of know what's to come and so on. So having quarterly releases just gives me a little breathing space when we're really in the middle of releases, because then I can plan more. So I know like, oh, I have a couple of months for this now, for this unit that will be released in 1 year and a half from now, right? So we have more breathing room, if that makes sense.
How does the feedback today shape what you're doing in a year and a half's time then? Obviously, you get a lot of people who offer opinions and talk about the game and what they want to see. Does that help shape what you're sort of planning now?
It does, in a sense of balance. If we're changing things now in units that exist currently, or if we're thinking about updating a patch, all of that has this trickle down effect. And so we do look at the future stuff in regards to the current balance, right? A lot. But I'd say that it's really hard to have like feedback from today that will impact, I'd say, game design in the sense of new ideas or new abilities, because those, even if they're not completely planned out, they're mostly planned out, right? But these new ideas usually come into this conceptual space, which has much less to do with feedback and much more to do with keeping consistent with the lore and the gameplay effects that we want to exist.
You must have like two brains. You must have your future brain and your current brain. So when you're speaking to different people, you have to engage either one.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it. It's hard sometimes because someone says like, oh, this attachment is mostly played in such and such unit. And then I look and I'm like, no, but this attachment is great with these other three that you don't know about. And I can't use that obviously as an argument or even as a spoiler, because these things are so way up ahead, right? But definitely we need to like parcel our brain in portions.
So one of the big things that you guys hit on was, coming out of the pandemic, you guys are kind of gearing back up with this great expo and this idea of communication, right? And you unveiled that you're looking at approaching the way you interact with the community in a different way, in that you want to be increasing and adding in potentially, it seemed like it was up for debate, monthly or quarterly, or someone was asking for a weekly, like kind of song chats or these fireside chats where you do a Q&A, much like you did at CMON Expo, engaging with the community. That sounds like an awesome idea. Did you have a personal preference over like the frequency? Like where do you see that being time-wise the most helpful?
It's interesting because I believe that our communication is already top-notch. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, and that's exactly where we're going. So in my mind, communication was supposed to happen when needed. And we discovered that when needed is actually a matter of keeping it consistent, right? Consistency is also needed.
Right. So
I don't know, like maybe once a month would be ideal, but I'm afraid that by doing once a month, like hearthside chats, we might run out of content. I'm not sure. Like we really need to figure out the format now. So we're searching for like the frequency and seeing how frequently people are interested in these sorts of chats, but definitely the format will need to adapt to it as well. So once a month does seem very feasible for me, but maybe it might be too much, maybe too little. We'll learn through time.
Sometimes you see other game properties and they have these regular catch-ups, these bulletins. Some of them do it spectacularly well because it's aligned with their release schedule, with the way the mechanisms within the game and how they get product to people. But at times, sometimes you see things where people are scrabbling for the smallest piece of information to fill out some kind of content. And I think that what we're seeing here is probably a little bit of a balance because of the release schedule being quarterly, because of the rules updates and things like that. It's probably better to do it as and when required rather than to have a hard and fast schedule.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll see. Like, once again, people were interested in the idea of having these regular chats. So if there is interest, we could at least try, right? And that's what we're going to do.
And I think even at the very least, right, the idea that, hey, these are things that we will be doing periodically, like it's kind of on the books, it gives people something to maybe bookend or be like, oh, well, this is coming at some point versus sometimes maybe having to be like, hey, we're going to talk about this now. And it's like, oh, surprise, like that's awesome. super needed. And people being like, when's the next one? Like, oh no, like it's been a week and we haven't heard from them. Have the gods abandoned us? So that's sort of like skies falling. And it's like, no. Like there's going to be at least something, in the next quarter, like, and we'll wait for that. Like I always joke, George R. R. Martin fans, the Song of Ice and Fire fans, like we can be patient. We're used to waiting, and that'll work.
Another thing about this is the fact that the community are driving it. They'll come to you with questions. So it's a slightly different type of way of communicating this, that they want information from the CMON team rather than you always having to generate stuff as well. So I think if you look at the way that you're interacting on the forums now for rules questions and things like that, that's probably a lot easier to manage and have regular content.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something, once again, that through the pandemic, we learned, right, doing the Visions in the Flames, where we were building all these Visions in the Flames articles, and the format existed before, but people started expecting it weekly, right? And I remember when we stopped the trickle down of Visions, and you could see the comments, like on Facebook, for example, and people were like, oh no, where are my Visions? And the memes, and it was really fun. That was really engaging, and it felt really positive, like from our end, like let's write a new article. Let's give them more content. That's good.
And when everybody's excited and energized, like it's infectious, and that inspires like everybody to jump in. But that's a kind of basic behavioralism, right? Where it's like everyone's trained like every Thursday at around this time. And then it's like the one day they ring the bell, you start to drool, and then there's nothing there. And you're like, what? Well, let's talk about some of the cool units that were revealed, and I can't hold off. So we got to jump in first.
We're going to start with the Night's Watch.
No, do we have to? Let's jump into the Free Folk Chariots. Okay, this is just so cool. I'm already like envisioning like kind of like a Mad Max style like force here that I can have. And for those that haven't seen the video yet, make sure you go to the CMON YouTube page and check out the Rally the Troops live stream where they show the unit cards and the sculpts there, so you can get a really cool vision of it. But these are a War Machine unit for Free Folk, and they've got the Order Swift Retreat. They've only got 6 wounds. They've got a free maneuver action before they move. And they've got Deadly Impact, where they gain Sundering, Vicious, and deal +1 to hit for each of the defender's remaining ranks. This is just such a fantastically cool, like new addition to the Free Folk army. I've got to just ask before we jump into the specifics about it, like, how long had you been working on something like this? Like, that's a cool secret to keep. Like, do you ever find yourself in a spot where like you just know there's these like really cool, unique things coming, and you just like can't share them with people yet? Like you just, you got to keep it a secret.
See, for sure. And I'd even say more. Like, I don't want to spoil a lot, but the Frozen Shore Chariots are part of a bigger picture here. And that's it. That's all I'll say.
Oh, man. Okay.
You said too much.
Now, this is kind of an interesting choice, though. So it's a War Machine unit, then. So it's not cavalry, it's not infantry. So that's going to be kind of weird in that it only will really interact with the tactics deck. Probably like 4 or so, I'm thinking, out of the 7 cards can actually be used on them, because I think a lot of the Free Folk cards are like infantry unit specific. Does that make it like tough to balance a unit like this where, you've got to think about like how it synergizes and how things can be force multipliers. Then you've got this thing that like kind of straddles a few areas.
That's a good question. We talked a lot in this episode already about foresight and future planning and how far ahead are we, right? And that has a lot to do with your question. So when we developed the Free Folk basic deck, we already future-proofed ourselves in a lot of ways, right? By restricting things to infantry and things like that. So it's not as if we did the 2021 update and said like, oh no, now we have chariots, like it was planned. So, and that was one of the hard decisions, to make them a war machine. And that's exactly to avoid having any missteps. Mm-hmm. Right. And avoiding the special synergies that we didn't want to exist. Right. You're already getting this huge benefit with these chariots through mobility and just through the having a different tray size. I think like veteran players know the impact that makes on the battlefield. So we didn't want it to be that easy. Right. And also, we were very careful not to make it a cavalry unit or a monster unit. All of these things, once again, were planned ahead of time. Like who'd have guessed? So
But it's cool. Like, there are still some synergies there. So like, there's too many. You can still do that. Diversion tactics is going to be great to maybe get that extra maneuverability if you're like out of position with them. Overwhelming assault, a little limited there when you get to choose your abilities because you're probably going to be charging in already. So the reroll attack dice, maybe not as great. They already have Sundering, but you can still use like critical blow. That's awesome. And then surrounded and exposed. Like the idea of zipping them up and then like using that to get like additional tokens based on like how you scooted them up. Like this just seems like it opens up so much. I'm just over the moon because it's going to be cool to have a different tray size, a miniature that looks awesome. And then it's just something that behaves totally different. So I'm going to be picking up a bunch. Now you guys said on stream, there is no limit to the number that you can have in an, besides points limits, there's no limit to the number of these in an army.
Once again, we went really back and forth on these. And as far as I remember, there is no limit, but I might have to bite my tongue.
Gotcha. All right. I keep asking because I'm like, how many of these can I get? Yeah. You've talked in the past about like how the first time you give something to like play testers, they'd be like, what happens if I spam this? And I'm like, the first time I saw this, I'm like, what happens if I can spam this? Like, I want to have a fleet. It may be ridiculous and horrible, but it's okay. It'll be my ridiculous and horrible.
Well, is it? I don't know. Like,
I know,
you should
right?
Definitely buy a bunch of boxes.
I see how it is. Okay. I want to get can we get a Fabio sculpt that's like, witness me, to put up on the front of one?
Oh, I hope so. I hope someone does a conversion. As long as they don't make me the gimp with the electric guitar.
Oh no, we've already opened the wrong can of worms here.
Okay, that's happening.
I don't know, Simon. You scared to see these on the table across from you?
I am now. No, you mentioned that last comment, but I can't see why anybody would run less than one just because they're so much fun. To have them in pairs when you get two in the box, you want to pair these up and like go round the back of another unit. One thing I will say though is that Free Folk are really turning into one of the most varied armies. There's so much different type of content, and it's very much in line with the content of the books as well. But it's really cool for players. I'm happy that you like Free Folk, Chase, because you've got a lot of choice here. But there obviously are other factions that people care a lot about too.
The coolest thing is like when you put it out on the table and you just look at your force, just the shapes, like your army can actually pattern wise and like visually people walking by, like, what are you guys playing? And like, you can have such a varied footprint. And I don't know. I kind of appreciate that as well.
So one question I have to ask is, were these ever Frozen Shore sleds or were they always chariots? Because someone asked the question about the wheels, and I know that people have said, oh, wheels don't work on snow. So, was that a design decision made at some point in time? Or was this always the case?
To be very honest, once again, since sculpting and artwork is done way in advance, I'm pretty sure that these came sculpted to me already. Like, because even if we started developing them gameplay wise, like 1-2 years ago, their sculpts were done 4 years ago or more. So as far as I know, they have always been chariots, but it's very, very possible that they could have been sleds. So
okay,
I'd go with the straight. I don't know there. I'm sorry.
I was like, you're going, we're not hanging out north of the wall anymore. We're coming down south, and, nothing's worse than getting stuck in, Lannister in the, flea bottom with your sled, scraping on the grass,
But I think maybe the next unit reveal might keep the Free Folk out of being south of the wall.
All right, these guys, we want to talk about the Vanguard. These look like Free Folk Slayers here. This is a pretty scary unit. Simon, what was your take on these?
First of all, I really enjoy any Night's Watch cavalry units because they look great, absolutely fantastic. I didn't really know much about the Ranger keyword until it was mentioned in the stream that there might be a possible interaction there as well. Fabio, could you expand on that a little bit? Because I don't want to misspeak here.
Yeah, no, there is. I guess Michael said it all last time, right? There's a Benjen commander, and he is the first Ranger. So therefore, there is a Ranger subhouse. Can we call it a subhouse? A sub-theme, just as the builders, for example. I do believe that the odd one out there will be the stewards, but you never know, maybe you can do a steward sub-faction with all these like fat guys and the bread makers.
Just all NCUs. And be like, oh.
That sounds awesome. I want that faction for me. That's great.
But the Rangers for sure. And those are ones that I've been looking forward to for a long time to reveal as well, because once again, Just the Rangers in general, I believe they're one of the core aspects of the Night's Watch faction, and they're finally unfolding, right? Through the Vanguard, through the Night's Watch Hero 2 box, which is soon, and so on. So, and it's funny because Chase said they are like free folk destroyers, but I don't see it that way. I see them really good at picking out smaller armies with
That's true.
equal or less activations because of the ambush.
Yeah, I mean, the panic I was more focusing on, but I guess you're right. The weakened, that'll be useful against especially like enemies that hit back pretty hard. And then outflank, that's kind of a mixed bag sometimes. Like I feel like that's something that can be super powerful, or like I can totally misplay.
Yeah, I always get it wrong every single time. It's like, oh, what have I done?
But it's like you can see how you've already kind of balanced a lot of the threat here. Immediately I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like what is it? Jon Snow's, I think it's like For the Watch is the one where you can replace the tactic zone with a charge. And it's what the melee, the attack zone and the maneuver zone. I was like, oh, these guys can like deploy and it's going to attack you. But since you're sharing that maneuver zone for the outflank, like it kind of balances that out there. So you can already see conceptually how these have been like fit into the 2021 update and how you're thinking so far ahead. Because this unit now I know because the art book, that was the one people were always speculating about. Like there was like a she bear picture and this one, it was always like, have these come out yet? Are they not? Like, are these the last ones? And so we know that this was, you know, in the Kickstarter, probably predating the Kickstarter, that art was there because those art books had to get printed in advance. So this is another one of those units you're talking about, like that was designed at least 4 years ago now?
Yeah, even more, I guess, because 4 years ago is when the art book got published, right? And people it went to people's homes. So that means there's at least 2-3 years ahead. So it's like 7 years ago, someone drew that art.
do you ever get in spots like maybe, for example, the 2021 update where you have to go back and like retool a unit that is still like a year out or more from like being released? You're like, well, with the change to the, you know, how we're tweaking these other units, we're going to, you know, bump their attack up one or down or.
That's always the case.
Oh,
right?
man.
And that's really the time consuming part where people look at it and say like, well, they're only, I'm going to round a number here, but there are only 60 boxes in A Song of Ice and Fire released, but not really. I'm working with 120 boxes.
Oh, geez.
Right? So we're always balancing like double. And it's really hard because when it does reach stores and people's houses and so on, and when it reaches the player base, you really don't know what's going to happen, right? Because they're going to experiment things. And once again, I'm looking at these boxes that are years ahead of time. And then there are interactions that, let's say they do slip, then there's not really much I can do at that point, right? So
yeah, but to address that as well, though, right? You guys have been really good about having updates and changes. And I think this was addressed on the stream. And actually, they even give a nod to, I remember when you guys did your first update for the game, there was like a forum, I think it was on Board Game Geek, where people were like really upset. And they were like, this game, they updated the units. Like, I don't want to play a game that changes. And it was like coming from a wargaming background. I'm like, oh no, like that's a plus, like, you know, and we're some board games I was shocked, but you guys have been really good about updating it. You know, I think we've had discussions about, there's been opinions about the 2021 update, but like, this is a living game, right? You always have time to update things. And it seems like, you know, sometimes people just get a little disgruntled about like what they want the timeline to be. And you guys got into the logistics of that, right? Michael was talking about it. You know, it's like a 6-month minimum turnaround for like printed cards. That's got to be pretty challenging.
You know, I'm a proponent of a vintage format when it comes to A Song of Ice and Fire. Basically, I want to freeze time just after the Night's Watch starter set came out, because that was so much fun then when people didn't know how they worked and you took them to the hobby store and you're playing. Like, well, this Jon Snow's a bit powerful. It's like, yeah, isn't it fun? It's great, having a great time. One thing I've noticed about the Ranger trackers and the Ranger Vanguards is that you've done a fantastic job at not doing the obvious, which is saying, well, should we just incorporate maybe a medium or heavy cavalry? You've actually kept that light cavalry type of look and feel to these, and you've managed to fill it out. So when you're looking at the Ranger Vanguards, it's more about panic and weakness. But I think when you look at the trackers, they're the ones that they give out vulnerable. Is that right, with marked target?
Exactly. And they work really well alongside each other, where then you have covered the whole spectrum, right, of attacking, defending, and panic. So that's really their point there. And they do a 1-2 punch if you're smart enough to do it. Right?
Perfect. I really am looking forward to having a complete Night's Watch mounted army. That's going to be cool. How many of these would you run in the Ranger Vanguards, do you think, normally? You're looking at 2 or 3 units of these.
I like variety, and that's my play style, and it might even be one of my faults. But I hardly ever have duplicate units in any list in any faction. So personally, if you ask me, I'd say 1 Ranger Vanguard does more than enough, right?
Yeah.
And usually repeating units means that you're going to have a blind side, right? So the more variety you have, the more tools you have at your service and the more gaps you can fill.
You know, I'd counter that with saying there's also, if you have duplicate units, there's less to remember. And people like me sometimes who can be distracted really want to try and keep things as simple as possible so you can actually get just the movement right, let alone some of the rules interactions. But I'm thinking I'm going to buy a couple of these. I think these are going to look great on the table. And I think I really want to try them with trackers as well. It's going to be a lot of fun.
For sure. I'll call you up on a match and we'll see if you can really defend the wall. Against the Chariots. Can Chariots climb walls? We'll find out.
I mean, that's like this will be tested. Don't worry.
Okay.
Hey, speaking of which, I tried to stir the pot a little bit in the YouTube chats for the live stream about your championship title here as the CMON champion from your victory over Michael Chanel. And someone in the chat, the CMON chat thing was like, yeah, we'll try and get Fabio to defend it against someone maybe in the Brazilian team. Any people in mind that you want to like call out, or is that something that maybe could happen in the future, or any interest in defending your title when things are safe to do so?
So from inside the team, I'm not going to call some of names out because there are people from other departments, from like distribution, localization, and so on, that they do play the game, people from marketing. And there are people who are better players than I am inside our staff, like our general staff.
Don't call them out then. Watch out.
Don't record them. Thank God they're not.
Like, we lost that footage.
But I'd say that from the development team here in Brazil, probably the person who has the best chance of beating me is Leo Almeida, one of the designers from Masters of the Universe. He was one of the original developers for the project, so the original core rules have a lot of his fingers there, and he is just an amazing player in any game. Usually he'll be the first one to figure out, the shenanigans. And I always feel like I'm a little late to the party.
Wasn't he like a world ranked Hearthstone player? Like, he was top 10, So, all right. Well, those sound like fighting words there. Leo, if you're listening, and I hope you are, we got to get you Free Folk, I think maybe. I mean, there's these Chariots. That'd be cool to see take it for a run.
I'd also like to point out that Leo is quite the accomplished dancer as well, which we saw on the He-Man live stream.
Go check out the Masters of the Universe panel from CMON Expo. It's towards the end. And if you are a fan of He-Man memes, we saw an in-person rendition of that. That is not to be missed. So if it's not on a Song of Ice and Fire match off, maybe Fabio, a dance off could be in order. That wasn't an affirmative noise.
I think if you throw down like that, Chase, you really have to go first.
Oh my gosh. Oh, fair enough. And then, so back to a Song of Ice and Fire. Then you guys left off with, you're kind of breaking the internet here with a taste of things to come. And you splashed up an image of 10 miniatures. And the most important thing I think we saw immediately was that there was a Free Folk riding a bear. So maybe that's the main focal point here.
No, not at all. I think it was the rather large red miniature in the middle of the screen that most people noticed first of all, Chase.
What? No. Hear me out. So
No.
Is that a grizzly bear? I don't know. A polar bear? I mean, so, fun fact, grizzly bears can run like 35 miles an hour and they can climb trees. I'm predicting this unit can climb trees. I'm just putting it out there. Fabio, what do you think? Is that
Do bears climb walls? We'll see. Should we have bears riding chariots?
Oh, there we go.
Wow,
now there's a conversion. It's gonna be an all bear army, skin changer possessed army. But yeah, let's jump into talking about the sculpture. So Simon, you brought up that mountain, that ride sculpt that's just like dominating the picture there.
Well, we assume it is. We don't actually know what anything is in this picture. So, Fabio, can you just go from left to right and sort of name each of the models for us, please?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
We'll start with good luck. And yeah, I guess you'll have to
what does that mean, good luck? What is it? It's a code? Is it? These are fantastic sets of sculpts. It leads to a lot of speculation here, though. The Lannister. So one thing that threw us off a little bit was the coloring of some of the renders are a little bit different. And that's just the image quality. Can you confirm or deny that?
Yeah, no, I'll confirm that to avoid too rampant of speculation.
Because someone was like, that Jaime Lannister looks like a purple. And is that,
is it in the book, the next book?
Is it a Targaryen one now or something? And everyone's like, what? And that one you actually revealed on the CMON Instagram page not too long ago. So if you guys aren't on the CMON Instagram page, make sure you check out that. They sometimes drop little hints and spoilers as well, like hidden in their posts, as well as some pretty amazing promo stories starring yours truly, Fabio Cury. Are any more of those coming down the line? You're like promos of like the Greyjoy box, like.
So yeah, first of all, I had a lot of fun doing those, and they just told me like, "Oh, go wild." So I did.
I love it.
Marketing got the joke, and I have a lot of those videos recorded. It really now depends on when they want to use those assets, right? And well, just to clarify, there are no new factions being spoiled in that image.
Okay.
Right. It's just a matter of like the renders and being images from like different places.
Because you're going to want to spoil the next faction that's coming up in something coming up, right?
Next faction is the
rather assumptive chase.
He's too good. All right. Oh man,
You try.
All right, I gotta work on my game there. I gotta step it up.
One thing which is good here is that we're seeing the return of spears. A lot of spears in these, and I think that's going to be great. You can see there that obviously we've got one on the top of the bear, but looks to be like a couple of Baratheon units there, maybe, and a dark grey one. Maybe that's Night's Watch, but we've got quite a few spears going on, so I'm a big fan of those.
Yeah, and once again, like what I really like about the sculpts that we do, when the spears get too long, something that Cominier does that is amazing is that they use different types of plastics.
Yeah.
So they don't go bendy and wobbly. Sometimes when you get pre-assembled miniatures and all their spears are just like kind of wobbly and tilted to the side. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen to us. It's like almost like an anti-smoking ad.
All right. Well, you already sort of crushed some hopes and dreams here, because I was like, oh, that Night's Watch sculpt, like, what could that be? Who could that be? And I was like, maybe this could be like the stewards aren't known for fighting, but like in times of need can defend the wall. And I was like, maybe it's a steward thing. But then when you were talking earlier and being like, stewards, bah. So, all right, that crosses out that conspiracy theory here.
I think a lot of this is for the viewer to sort of look at and research, read the books. I think if you look at some of the descriptions, some of the units, and look at the literature, you can probably figure a lot of these out. And I think some people have made some good guesses already, but, we'll have to be patient. It's not all about having this information now. These are a taste of things to come. So let's be patient and wait and see what comes down the pipe.
But I don't want to be patient. It's so cool.
Gonna have to be.
You'll get them before the Winds of Winter. So.
Oh, all right.
Well, that's not reassuring. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a second. Now you done messed up. That can only go one of two ways now. It's like dropping tomorrow and you'd be like, oops. Or
yeah.
or we have a longer timeline than we'd hope. Simon, any other one on here that stands out to you before we start to wrap things up?
The Stark type looking figures, I kind of went off the Starks for a while. The first faction that most people gravitated towards with the Stark and Lannister box set. But looking at some of the more recent sculpts and seeing the ones here, I'm kind of thinking that I might have to get those out and actually finish painting them. I think it's a very strong faction. It's probably one of the most iconic, beside the Lannisters, within the whole of the IP itself. But it's one of those issues that I've got now is, what am I going to stop collecting first? Because this is a struggle. I'm looking at these thinking, I can't keep buying everything. I'm running out of space for boxes now. It's becoming a bit of embarrassing. How many boxes are there out now? You said there was like 60 units. Is that right, Fabio?
Oh, let's say that at least each faction has reached their 10th box.
Yeah.
So there's like 90 boxes, give or take.
That's too much. And I don't throw the boxes away either. I've not got to that stage yet because they're really good for storage. So I have to start hiding them away or depositing them maybe in the loft or something out of the way.
And you start buying multiples, exactly. I need my chariot fleet because, just reasons. But I don't know. I'm in the same thing. And Michael on stream made an offhand comment about a Mage Mormont commander, and the she-bears are so cool. And now I'm like, wow, oh my gosh. And the Karstark Spearman you showed off before, not this stream, but last, now I'm like, oh, maybe I do want to jump in with Starks again. And good problems to have. Yeah,
for me, the Stark's the kind of army that I want to get painted. So if I'm playing against someone new, I can say, here's the Stark army that you can play with, because they recognize all the characters and they're going to be very comfortable with it, because it is that kind of army that you can get to grips with quite quickly. It's not like the Lannisters where there's interplay and reliance on your opponent. You can actually just follow through with your plans, and it's very, very rewarding. So let's wait and see what happens.
I don't know. Fabio, are you collecting? And I know you appreciate Baratheons. Are you collecting any particular armies, or I guess as this is your job, you just do it all?
I like them all, and I try to do it all. For me personally, it's really hard to get one of each, although that's really my long-term plan. Like my long goal is to eventually, my grandchildren one day find out all these boxes of grandpa's game or something.
This guy was crazy.
Yeah. Grandpa Curry's basement. Let's go in it. What is this stuff?
But right now I'm also having problems just fitting in my miniatures just in general. I'm in hobby wise. I'm really into dioramas right now.
Yeah.
So, and they occupy a lot of room.
Any chance we get a shot of one of your dioramas here that we could showcase? Well, just if you're watching, I know some of you do watch this on YouTube. We'll throw up the image here so you guys can check it out. We'll post it maybe on social media if that's okay for Fabio.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, to check out this the diorama. So these are the sorts of things you're doing.
Yeah, and then I give them away, right? Because I don't have the space. So I just make one and give it to a friend or something. I hope they do have the space. It doesn't go to the bin.
So some other person's grandkids are like, why did Grandpa have all these things from Fabio Cury?
One question I've got is, are there any questions that people don't ask you that you normally expect? Because when you have this sort of light Q&A session during these sort of previews, do you sometimes expect a question, you just don't get it, and you think, oh, okay, well, people haven't thought about that or not interested?
To be very honest, and I don't want to seem arrogant, and it's not I haven't seen any new questions in a long time, mostly because the questions are renewable, right? You can ask the same question 6 months apart. And
what's the next unit? What's the next faction?
Exactly. And also, these are the questions people want answered first.
Yeah.
So I think in an hour's time, people want to get back to the main questions and get them solved. And then there's never time for the really unexpected or curveball questions.
Well, I guess that's a challenge to everybody listening then, is when we do your sort of monthly or bi-monthly updates, then if people can maybe think up a question they can ask you that which may not be asked before, that might be kind of a cool thing.
What's your star sign? What's your Chinese?
Ooh, what's your zodiac? Yeah, what is your sign? I'm curious. Let me guess. Yeah. What do you got?
I'm a Gemini, but I don't really know what that means or what that implies.
You strike him as a Gemini for sure.
Well, Geminis are volatile beings that are inquisitive, intelligent, and great thinkers. They tend to remain in one location, and they're highly competent, and they can quickly persuade others to accept their own thoughts and beliefs. Oh.
No wonder I'm the developer then.
Yeah. It was in the stars all along.
What do you chase? What's your...
I'm a Pisces.
Okay. Same as my sister.
There we go. Surprise. No. I
I knew it.
Well, and Simon, what are you? This has become the astrological.
It is. I'm sure people like to hear that. I'm a Libra.
Oh,
Balanced individual.
Gotcha. Now I'm looking up these like relationship things here. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's the hot news, guys. You heard it here first. Fabio Cury, Gemini. Unfortunately, he's already taken out there. So, you ladies, the heartbreaker, he's happily married now. So he's off the market.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of war gamers around there, ladies. Don't worry. Just go to the conventions.
There's no shortage.
Well, Fabio, thanks so much for jumping on here, and fantastic stuff. We're really excited to see where the game is going, and we're looking forward to these upcoming chats and all the great stuff you're doing.
Thank you very much. And I'm always really happy to be here, and I really like these lighthearted conversations with you guys. So once again, thank you very much. And I hope we do see each other again, and that you do invite me more.
Sounds good. And so remember, guys, the big recaps today. Make sure if you haven't already, you check out the CMON live streams. Those replays are up on YouTube. Leo Almeida, you've been called out, so watch out. You better start training. I want to see some Rocky montages. And for everyone else joining us, thank you so much. And in the meantime, we hope you get your miniatures on the table.